I nodded. Well, repeat them to me so I know you'll stay out of trouble. He demanded. I swallowed. Do not let in any children, and remember to wear your disguise. Aji's head tilted a fraction. Under all that fake hair and grime smear, I could still feel his eyes drilling into me like he was looking for a crack. In, he said. I blinked. My mouth went dry, so fast my tongue felt like it was stuck to the roof. And don't go into the play area unless I have to, I added, because that had been the one I'd been thinking about nonstop ever since Sandy. Ever since those cries turned wet and wrong and quiet. Aji's shoulders lifted like he was taking a deep breath, then dropped. Not unless you have to, he repeated slow. Good. And what do you do if you hear the toys moving and you don't see anyone? Don't look for who's playing, I said. I ignore it. I keep working. And if a child speaks to you, I don't answer. The words came out too quick. I don't try to comfort them. I don't. And if you see a child and you think you can handle it, he cut in, voice sharpening. I hated that part. I hated how it made me sound like a coward. But rules weren't about bravery. Rules were about staying alive. I can't, I said. I don't handle it. I get you. Or Mr. Keys. Aji nodded like I'd recited a prayer right. Then get back to dusting, he said, already walking away from me, shoulders hunched, hands loose like he was strolling into a bar fight he'd been in 100 times. And keep that damn hat up. You look like a kid wearing his father's clothes. I'm not going back there, I hissed, jerking my thumb toward the play area without even looking. I couldn't make myself look. Like if I looked, I'd see the boy's fingers pinching that girl's scalp again, stretching skin like cheap fabric. Aji stopped at the corner. He didn't turn around all the way, just enough for me to see the side of his mask, one I hold darker than the other. You're not going back there, he agreed. I am. Why are they even? I started, then clamped my jaw. I wanted to ask why the store attracted them, what the hell they were, why Mr. Keys paid us to pretend we were someone else, why a bookstore needed a play area if kids weren't allowed. I wanted answers like a starving man wants food. Aji didn't give food. Aji gave rules. Dusty, he said, like he was talking to a dog that wouldn't heal. Do you want to keep your skin on? Do you want to keep your eyes in your head? I stared at him. Then you don't ask why at 3 in the goddamn morning, he said. You do your job. You let me do mine. He turned and disappeared into the play area. I stood there in the dim, listening. The store was quiet except for the buzzing open sign and the old building noises. Pipes ticking, some vent wheezing like a smoker. My gloves were slick with sweat inside. The disguise made everything worse. It was supposed to make you look like an adult customer. Not you. Not an employee. Not prey. Mr. Keys called it being presentable. Aji called it not smelling like food. I forced myself to move. Dusting here wasn't like a normal job. There were no shelves of romance novels and bestsellers with a little film of gray you wiped off. The corner palace of knowledge. Yeah, that's what the sign said, like it was cute. Had old books, odd books, books with no author, books that felt warm on the spine like something breathing under leather. And the dust didn't act like dust. It clung. It crawled. Sometimes it lifted in little drifts like it had its own weather. I grabbed the feather duster out of the closet, the one Mr. Keys insisted we use. Real feathers, black as a crow, tied to a handle that looked like it had been carved by someone who hated trees. The second my fingers closed around it, the hair on my arms prickled. Fuck, I muttered, more to myself than anything. Then I started down the first aisle. At first, it was normal, normal-ish. The kind of normal you get used to when you've been doing this long enough. Wipe the top shelf, wipe the display table, don't look too long at the security mirrors, don't hum, don't whistle. Whistling had been explicitly forbidden after what happened to Lyle, the guy before me. I never met him. I'd only heard the story. His name still got said like a warning. The duster swept over the spines, and the dust lifted in a soft little cloud. It didn't settle like it should. It drifted sideways, like it was being pulled toward the back of the store, toward the play area. I try not to notice. Then I heard it. Not the plastic clack again. Not the galloping slap of hands and feet. Something else. A low, wet sound, like someone chewing with their mouth open. Slow, deliberate. My feet stopped on their own. I held my breath and listened. Chew. Pause. Chew. A small giggle muffled. Aji's voice low. Not gentle. Not even close. No, he said, like he was talking to a dog again. Not here. Something scraped. A chair leg dragged. Then a sharp sound like a book hitting the floor. I gripped the duster so hard my knuckles hurt. I wanted to run. Not into the play area. Just out. Slam the door, leave the open sign buzzing behind me, go home, crawl under my blankets like a kid, and pretend I'd never taken this job. But that's the thing with money. Money doesn't just buy you comfort. It buys you excuses to stay places you shouldn't. So I kept dusting. I moved aisle by aisle, methodical, the way you do when you're trying not to let your mind wander. Every so often I'd hear Aji, his boots, his muttering, a harsh shushing sound like he was calming something. Once I heard a child's laugh and it made my stomach flip. No kids allowed. And yet, the door jingled again. I jumped so hard my hat slid down over my eyes. I shoved it back up at the back of my wrist and turned toward the front desk. A man stood just inside the door. Tall. Too tall. His shoulders brushed the hanging string lights Mr. Keys had draped there to make the place feel cozy. He wore a coat that looked wet, like he'd come in from rain, but when I glanced at the street outside through the glass, it was bone dry. No puedes. No dice. Nothing. He didn't look at me right away. He looked around the store like he was checking for exits. And his eyes found me. My mouth tried to do the script. Welcome to the corner palace of knowledge. What will you be reading? He raised one hand, palm out. Quiet, he said. Not shouted. Not even loud. Just firm. Like the word was a key and my mouth was a lock. I shut up. He stared at me another second, then looked past me down the aisles toward the dark back corner. You're alone? He asked. No, I said, then immediately regretted it. I wasn't supposed to volunteer information. That was another one of those rules you didn't think mattered until it did. He smiled, but it wasn't friendly. It was like someone pulling a zipper. Not alone, he repeated. Good. He stepped farther in. The door closed behind him without the normal soft click. More like a suck, like the air had been pulled in. He walked straight to the front desk, leaned over, and sniffed the air like he was smelling soup. You changed the cleaning feathers, he said. What? He pointed at my duster with one long finger. Too long, like the joints were spaced wrong. Those, he said, they're fresh. I stared at him. They're feathers. His eyes narrowed like he was offended by my stupidity. Fresh feathers make the shelves restless, he said. Old feathers keep the shelves sleeping. I don't. I started. Something thumped from the back of the store. Not loud, not huge, but heavy enough to make the hanging paperbacks on the little display rack sway. The tall man's head tilted. Ah, he said, like he'd just heard an oven timer. The children came early. My throat tightened. He looked at my face, really looked, like he was studying whether my disguise fit. You knew, he said. I've been here months. I snapped because fear makes me stupid and angry sometimes. He smiled again. Months is new, he said. Then his smile faded. Where is Keys? Not here. Where's the one called Aji? That made my skin crawl. He said Aji's name like he'd tasted it before. In the back, I said, then immediately wished I could swallow the words back down. The tall man's eyes drifted toward the play area again. Tell him, he said, that if he spills again, Keys will have to replace him. Spills? I started, but he was already walking away, moving down the aisle like he knew the place better than I did. I watched him go, frozen behind the front desk, my fingers still clenched around the duster. He didn't browse. He didn't look at titles. He just walked, and as he passed certain shelves, the dust lifted on its own, rising up into little spirals like it was being pulled toward him. He stopped by the local history section, reached out, and pressed his palm flat against the spines. The books shivered. I swear to God, they shivered like animals. The man leaned in and whispered something I couldn't hear. Then he pulled one book out. No title, no author, just a blank black cover. He tucked it under his coat like it belonged to him. And then he turned and headed back toward the front without paying. My heart hammered. Another rule. Don't stop a customer from taking a book. Not if they take it like they already own it. Because if they already own it, that means the book wasn't ours in the first place. He reached the door, paused, and looked back at me. "Tell the duster," he said, voice carrying weirdly through the air, "that the girl outside isn't waiting for him. She's waiting for the door." Then he opened the door and stepped out into the dark street. The bell jingled once, and then again. 2 quick chimes. My blood ran cold. That was a rule too. If the bell rings twice when the door opens, you lock up. You don't let anyone else in. You don't go outside. You wait. I moved without thinking. I flipped the little brass lock on the door, then slid the deadbolt. My hand shook so hard I fumbled it the first time. Outside, through the glass, I saw movement. The little red-cheeked girl. She was right there on the sidewalk, staring at the door like she could see through it. She lifted one hand and pressed her palm against the glass. Her fingers were too clean, too pale, and she smiled at me like we were friends. My stomach rolled. I took a step back. From the back of the store, Aji shouted something. Not words, just a sharp, animal sound. Pain or anger, I couldn't tell. Then the lights in the play area flickered. I stood there, caught between the girl at the door and whatever the hell was happening behind me. The girl's hand slid down the glass, leaving a streak like condensation, except it wasn't clear. It was pink, like diluted blood. Her mouth opened, and even though the glass should have muffled it, I heard her voice like she was whispering right in my ear. "Open," she said. I didn't move. "Open," she said again, more insistent. The buzzing open sign above her head flickered, and for a second it didn't spell open. It spelled something else. Something like open, like letters were falling out. I squeezed my eyes shut and forced myself to breathe through my nose. The smell inside my disguise, old sweat, rubber, dust, made me gag. "No, you whispered." The girl's smile widened. "Rules," she sang softly. "Rules, rules, rules." She lifted her other hand and tapped the glass twice with one finger. Top, top. My legs almost gave out. Behind me, another sound, fast, slapping footsteps on the floor. Not boots, not shoes, bare hands and bare feet. Galloping, coming from the back. I turned my head slowly, like moving too fast would make it real. Down the aisle, at the far end near the play area corner, something low to the ground moved in the shadows. Something with a child's shape, but it moved wrong. Too smooth, too eager. Aji's voice boomed from the back, furious. "Get the fuck out of there." The thing paused, then tilted its head like it was listening. Then it started galloping toward me. I stumbled backward, hitting the edge of the front desk with my hip. Pain shot up my side. Outside, the girl pressed her face to the glass. Her blue eyes were huge, shining. "Open," she whispered again. The galloping thing got closer. I could hear the wet slap of its palms, the scrape of skin on wood. I could see it now, small, naked shoulders, 2 long arms, a head that seemed too big for its body. And as it came into the dimmer light, I realized it wasn't naked. It was wearing something, a scalp, not its own, a little cap of hair and skin sitting crooked on its head like a hat. My vision tunneled. I grabbed the nearest thing on the desk, an old heavy stapler, and held it up like it would do anything. The thing slowed, not scared, just curious. Its mouth opened slightly. A string of drool hung from its lip. Then it smiled, and the smile looked like an adult's. Aji burst out of the back corner, charging down the aisle, one hand gripping something I couldn't make out at first. A belt? No, a strap. Leather, with metal buckles. He slammed into the thing from the side, so hard they both skidded across the floor. Aji threw the strap over it, like he was roping a calf. "Not here," he snarled. "Not on my floor." The thing squealed, not like a kid, like a rabbit being killed. It thrashed and the scalp hat slipped, sliding down over one eye. Blood dripped onto the wood. Aji yanked the strap tight and hauled it back toward the play area like he was dragging a bag of garbage. "Stay at the desk," he barked at me without looking. "Don't look at her." I didn't have to ask who her was. The girl outside was still there, face pressed to the glass, smiling like she was watching her favorite show. I forced my eyes away from her and focused on Aji as he dragged the thing back. It clawed at the floor, leaving faint streaks in the dust. You let them in? Oggi spot, Vesro. No. I snapped. I didn't. She was just there. And then they were in the play area. I locked the door. Aji's jaw worked under the mask. They don't need doors. He hauled the thing around the corner and into the play area. The lights flickered again, then steadied. For a few seconds, all I heard was the squealing and Aji's heavy breathing. Then silence. Not normal silence. A thick, pressed silence like someone had put a pillow over the store. I stood behind the desk, shaking, my fingers still wrapped around the stapler. My heart beat so hard I could see my vision pulse. Outside, the girl's smile faded. She looked annoyed. She lifted one finger and slowly traced a circle on the glass. Right over where her blue, I lined up. Her nail made a faint squeak, and she mouthed something. No sound this time, but I could read it. Next time, then she stepped back, turned on her heel, and walked down the sidewalk into the darkness like a little princess leaving a party early. I didn't move until she was gone. The doorbell didn't jingle. The open sign buzzed and flickered like nothing had happened. The store breathed again, and then Aji came back out. He looked worse, not blood-soaked or limping, just disturbed, like someone had scratched at something inside him. His disguise sat crooked. One side of his fake beard had peeled loose, revealing pale skin beneath. Too pale for a man who spent his life smoking and sweating. He walked up to the desk, leaned both hands on it, and stared at me. Did she speak? He asked. Yeah, I whispered. She told me to open. Oggi nodded slowly. Did you answer? No. Did you touch the door after you locked it? No. Did you look her in the eyes? I hesitated. Aji's eyes narrowed. Dusty. My throat tightened. I looked. For a second. I didn't. Aji slapped the desk hard enough to make me jump. Don't do that again, he said, voice low. That's not some cute rule for keys to feel important. That's the difference between her being outside and her being in. I swallowed. What is she? Aji stared at me like I'd asked him what color the sky was. A child, he said. Bullshit. I snapped, and the word came out louder than I meant. Fear makes you brave in stupid ways, too. Kids don't. Kids don't wear scalps like hats, Aji. His nostrils flared. Kids do whatever they're allowed to do, he said. And this place allows more than it should. I leaned forward, fists clenched on the desk. Then why the fuck do we keep it open? Why do we keep letting people come in like it's normal? Why do we have a goddamn play area at all if no kids are allowed? Aji's eyes flicked toward the front windows, toward the street, like he was checking if someone might be listening. Then he leaned closer. Because Keys made a deal, he said quietly. And you don't get to back out of a deal just because it makes your stomach hurt. What deal? Oggi esse gaze ardent. You don't need to know. Ido, he insisted. I'm the one standing here when shit like that happens. Aji's mouth twisted under the mask. You want to know? Fine. Here's what you need to know. The store is older than the building. The store is older than the street. It's hungry, and it likes stories, and it likes people who read them. That's not. I started. It likes people who work, Aji added sharp. It especially likes people who clean. Because cleaning is caring. Cleaning is permission. Cleaning is you telling it you'll keep it nice. My skin crawled. Aji straightened up, rolling his shoulders like he was trying to shake off something that touched him. Get back to dusting, he said again. You've got 20 minutes before the next one comes. The next one? I echoed. Aji didn't answer. He just walked toward the back room, rubbing his hands together like he was trying to get something off his skin. I stood there for another heartbeat, then forced myself to move. Dusting. Caring. Permission. I hated how the words sat in my head, like they wanted to stick. I went back down the aisles. The dust felt thicker now, almost damp. My duster made little trails through it, and the air smelled faintly like old paper and wet pennies. At 3:25, the door jingled again. This time it was my co-worker, Marnie. She came in briskly, wrapped in a big coat, hair shoved under a knit cap. Before she even took off her coat, she was tugging her disguise out her tote bag, Some awful rubbery thing shaped like a middle-aged woman with too much eyeliner. "Morning," she said, voice muffled as she pulled it over her face. "It's been a morning," I muttered. Marnie paused. Her hands froze on the mask straps. That tone means I'm about to hear something I don't want to. I glanced toward the back. "Aji's here." Marnie groaned. "Great. Love when old man misery's in." I didn't smile. I couldn't. Marnie's eyes, behind the mask's eye holes, flicked over me. "You look like shit." "I feel like shit." She stepped closer. "What happened?" I hesitated. Another unspoken rule. Don't scare the new employees. Marnie wasn't new, but still. Talking about it made it feel like inviting it back. But she could tell. "Kids," she guessed quietly. My throat tightened. I nodded once. Marnie swore under breath. "Already? It's barely." "Aji handled it," I said. Marnie's shoulders relaxed a fraction, then tensed again. "That doesn't make me feel better. That makes me feel worse." I snorted a humorless laugh. "Yeah, same." She looked toward the play area corner. "Did you see them?" "Yes." "Did they see you?" "Yes." Marnie's jaw clenched. Fuck. We both went quiet, listening. The store was deceptively calm. The worst moments always were. Like the place liked the contrast. Marnie pulled on her gloves, then headed toward the register. "Keys, no," she asked. "No. Do we tell him?" I thought about Mr. Key's blunt face, the way he'd offer me a raise like he was tipping a waiter. I thought about the way he'd refuse to answer questions like answers were something you had to earn. "No," I said. "Aji said." "Aji says a lot of shit," Marnie snapped, then immediately softened her tone. I hate this. I hate that we just keep swallowing it." "I know." Marnie exhaled hard. "Okay, we do the job. We keep the rules. We get paid." "We get paid," I echoed. And for a few minutes, it actually felt almost normal. Marnie worked the front. I dusted. The first real customers came in around 4. Night owls, insomniacs, people who smelled like cigarettes and loneliness. They browsed quietly, bought used paperbacks, left without incident. Then, around 4:17, a woman came in who didn't look like she belonged. She was dressed like she'd stepped out of a church photo from the 1940s. Hair pinned, coat buttoned, gloves neat. She carried a little purse like it was a sacred object. Marnie stiffened behind the counter when she saw her. I noticed because Marnie didn't stiffen for normal customers anymore. Normal customers didn't scare her. The woman walked straight to the counter and set her purse down gently. Marnie's voice went bright, fake. "Good morning. Can I help you find something?" The woman smiled. Her teeth were too flat. "I'm looking for a book," she said. "What kind?" Marnie asked, still bright. The woman's eyes slid toward me, then back to Marnie. "A children's book," she said. The air felt like it dropped 10 degrees. Marnie's smile twitched. "We don't. We have them," the woman said, calm. "We have them in the back." Marnie swallowed. "We don't sell them." The woman's smile widened a fraction. "You keep them for her." Marnie's eyes flicked toward the door, toward the street outside. I felt my stomach twist. The woman leaned forward slightly, voice dropping like she was sharing gossip. "She's lonely," she whispered. "She's been waiting. She wants to play." Marnie's hands curled in a fist behind the counter. "No children allowed." The woman's head tilted. "But you have a play area. That's not for..." Marnie started, then shut her mouth like she'd almost said something she shouldn't. The woman's eyes gleamed. "You have toys. You have little chairs. You have crayons. You keep it clean." My duster paused mid-swipe. The woman's gaze snapped to me. "You," she said. "You clean it." I didn't answer. Marnie's voice sharpened. "Mom, we can help you find something else. Fiction, non-fiction." "I don't want something else," the woman said, and the calmness drained out of her tone like someone pulling a plug. "I want what she wants." Marnie's eyes hardened behind her mask. "Then you're in the wrong store." The woman's smile vanished. She reached into her purse slowly, like she was reaching for a wallet. My muscles tensed. Instead, she pulled out a small object and set it on the counter. A plastic toy, a little figurine, bright colors, cheap. The kind you'd find at the bottom of a kid's toy box. It was a tiny boy, and on its head was a little cap of hair. My breath hitched. Marnie stared at it like it was a live spider. The woman tapped it with one finger. "I found it outside," she said. "By the door. It was left behind." Marnie swallowed. "We don't take lost and found." The woman's eyes narrowed. "She'll come back for it." Marnie's voice dropped. "Then you can give it back to her." The woman's lips peeled back, and for a second, I saw something behind her eyes that wasn't human impatience. It was hunger. Simple as that. "You don't get to give it back," she said softly. "You don't get to decide what she takes." Marnie leaned forward, voice low and vicious. "Lady, listen to me. You can walk out that door right now and go ruin somebody else's morning. Or you can stay and find out what happens when you talk about her like you know her." The woman blinked slow. Then she smiled again, but this time it didn't reach her eyes at all. "I know her better than you," she said. And then she slid the toy across the counter toward Marnie. Marnie didn't touch it. "Don't," I whispered, barely audible. Marnie's eyes flicked to me. The woman's gaze followed, and her smile widened like she'd caught us doing something naughty. "Oh," she said, "you've seen them." Marnie's voice came out strained. "Get out." The woman didn't move. Instead, she reached up and slowly pulled off one glove. Her hand underneath was wrong. The fingers were too long and too thin, and the skin looked stretched, shiny, like it didn't fit properly, like it belonged on someone else. She pressed that bare hand down on the toy, palm covering it. Then she lifted her hand away. The toy's little scalp cap was gone. Just smooth plastic now. My throat closed. Marnie's breath came fast. The woman put her glove back on, neat as anything. "She likes to share," the woman murmured. "She likes to trade. Little things. Little pieces." Marnie snapped. "Get out." The woman finally straightened, picked up her purse, and smiled one last time. "I'll tell her you're being rude," she said. Then she walked out, the bell jingling once. Marnie stood frozen behind the counter, staring at the spot where the toy had been. The toy itself was gone too, like it had never existed. I stared at the door. Marnie's voice came out hoarse. "Did you see her hand?" "Yeah." Marnie swallowed. "That wasn't a customer." "No." Marnie's mask shifted as her jaw clenched. "We need to tell Keys." "No," I said automatically. Marnie snapped her head toward me. "Why the hell not?" "Because Keys will blame us," I said. "Because Keys will say we weren't following rules well enough. Because Keys doesn't care about us. He cares about the store." Marnie's eyes flashed. "And Aji cares?" I hesitated. Marnie's voice dropped. "Don't tell me you trust him." I didn't trust Aji. Not really. I trusted that Aji wanted to keep breathing. That was different. "I trust that Aji knows how not to die here," I said. Marnie let out a shaky laugh. What a comforting thought. She leaned back against the counter and dragged her hands down her face, rubber mask squeaking. "God," she muttered. "God, I hate this place." "Me too," I said quietly. From the back room, Aji's voice suddenly called out. "Dusty." My blood chilled. I looked toward the back. "Dusty," he called again, sharper. "Get back here." Marnie straightened. "What now?" "I don't know," I whispered, then started walking, my feet heavy like they didn't want to. The back room was cramped and smelled like old mop water and paper rot. Cleaning supplies, boxes of donated books, a little metal desk where Aji sometimes sat like a guard dog. Aji was standing by the supply closet, arms crossed. His disguise was off now, hanging from one hand like a dead face. Underneath, he looked older than I'd guessed. Deep lines, gray stubble, eyes like someone who'd watched too many funerals. He jerked his chin at me. "Tell me you didn't look at her." I blinked. "Who?" Aji's eyes narrowed. "Don't play dumb with me." "The one outside." "The girl." "Oggi jotaitend." "Yes, her." My throat tightened. I looked for a second earlier, but I didn't. Oggi stepped closer, so fast uno flinched. "You don't look," he hissed. "You don't. You keep your eyes off, because if she catches you looking, she thinks you're playing." I wasn't. "She doesn't care what you meant." Aji snapped. "She cares what you did." I swallowed hard. Did something happen? Aji's eyes flicked past me, toward the store. She sent a mouth, he said. My stomach dropped. And what? Audrey reached down and grabbed the edge of the supply closet door, yanking it open. Inside, the shelves were lined with bottles and rags and old feather duster refills. And there, on the floor, was something small and pale. At first, my brain refused to make it into anything real. Then it clicked. A mouth. Just a mouth. Lips and teeth. No face, no tongue I could see. It was sitting on the concrete like a dropped prop. And it was breathing. The lips puckered, then opened slightly like it was tasting the air. Holy shit, I whispered. Audrey's voice was tight. It came in under the door, slid like a slug. The mouth opened wider, and I heard a whisper come from it, wet and soft. Open, it said. I stumbled back so fast I hit the wall. Audrey slammed the closet door shut. The whisper muffled but didn't stop. Open, open. Marnie appeared in the doorway behind me, mask on, eyes wide. What the fuck is that? Audrey shot her a look. Not your problem. Marnie's voice rose. Not mine? Are you kidding me? Audrey snapped. If you want to keep working here, you stay out of this. Marnie's hands clenched. If I want to keep working here? Audrey, there's a mouth in the closet. Audrey's eyes burned. Then don't open the closet. Marnie stared at him like he'd lost his mind. Maybe he had. Maybe you had to. I forced my voice steady. Why is it here? Audrey's gaze flicked to me. Because you looked. My stomach twisted. Audrey cut me off. Barely is enough. The closet door thumped softly from the inside, like something pressing against it. Open. The whisper came again, faint through the wood. Marnie's voice shook with anger. So what? We just leave it. Audrey's mouth tightened. We wait. For what? I asked. Audrey's eyes narrowed. For keys. My pulse spiked. You're calling him? Audrey didn't answer. He just pulled his phone out of his pocket and stared at the screen for a second, like he hated it. Then he hit call. The closet whispered behind him like a lullaby from hell. Audrey held the phone to his ear, jaw clenched. It rang once, twice, 3 times. Then Mr. Keys answered. Audrey's voice turned respectful in a way I'd never heard from him. Sir, we've got a situation. He listened, eyes locked on the floor. Marnie and I stood there, silent, breathing shallow. Audrey said, no, sir, not inside. Under the door. The child. He listened again. Audrey's eyes flicked to me sharp. Then he said, yes, sir. He looked. My stomach dropped through the floor. Audrey's expression didn't change, but the muscle in his jaw jumped like he was biting backwards. He listened, then said, understood. And he hung up. Marnie exploded. You told him it was him? Audrey's gaze snapped to her. It was. Marnie's voice rose, furious. That was hours ago, and he barely. Audrey stepped toward her. Don't yell, he warned low. Not here. Not now. Marnie's eyes flashed. Fuck you. Audrey didn't flinch. He looked back at me. Keys is coming, he said. My throat tightened. What did he say? Audrey's eyes were flat. He said you're going to fix it. The closet door thumped again. The whisper seeped through the crack around the frame. Open, open. Marnie's voice dropped, suddenly scared. How the hell does he fix a mouth? Audrey didn't answer her. He grabbed my wrist, hard, and pulled me a step closer. You're going to do exactly what Keys says, Audrey murmured. No arguing. No questions. You do it, and you keep breathing. I stared at the closet, my stomach turning. The mouth kept whispering, patient as a parasite. And somewhere out in the store, I heard a soft plastic clack. Like a toy being picked up. The plastic clack came again. Not loud, just deliberate. Like someone was making sure we heard it. Audrey didn't move at first. He just listened, head slightly tilted like a dog catching a frequency I couldn't. The closet door bumped once from the inside. Open, the whisper said, wet and breathy. I stood there with my wrist still in Audrey's grip, feeling my pulse in my throat. Marnie hovered in the doorway, half in the back room, half in the store, like she couldn't decide which side was safer. Where is it? She hissed, looking past us. In the play area, Audrey said without turning. Or near it. How do you know? Aji finally let go of my wrist and reached up, rubbing the bridge of his nose like he was trying to push a migraine back into his skull. Because that sound, he nodded toward the store. That's the starter pistol. That's them testing the leash. My mouth felt full of cotton. Keys is coming, right? He said you're gonna fix it. Aji repeated, like that was supposed to be comforting. His eyes slid to the closet. And he's not wrong. Marnie's laugh came out sharp and broken. Not wrong. He's gonna make Dusty fix whatever that is. The closet whispered again, louder now like it was getting impatient. Open. Open. I flinched hard enough my shoulders cramped. Aji snapped his fingers at Marnie. Mask on. What? I already. Not the disguise, he said. The other one. Marnie's face drained under the rubber mask. No. Aji's eyes hardened. Yes. She shook her head. No. Fuck no. That's only for when. That's what this is, Aji said. Marnie stared at him, breathing fast. I'm not putting that thing on for a mouth in a closet. It's not just a mouth, Aji said. It's a keyhole. I swallowed. Aji bent down, pulled open the bottom drawer of the metal desk, and took something out wrapped in an old towel. He sat on the desk and unrolled the towel like he was revealing a weapon. It was a mask, not rubber, not a cheap Halloween disguise. This was stiff, off-white, shaped like a human face, but simplified. No pores, no expression, just blank features and hollow eye sockets. It looked like porcelain, but the edges were worn like bone, and the inside was stained dark. There were little marks scratched into the forehead. Rows of them, like tally marks. Marnie's throat bobbed. I hate that thing. Everybody hates it, Aji said. He pushed it toward her. Put it on. Marnie's hand shook as she reached for it. What does it do again? She asked, voice thin, even though I knew she already knew. Like repeating it out loud would make it less real. Aji looked at me. It makes you less tasty. That's the technical term? I managed my voice cracking. Aji didn't smile. It makes you a shape they've already eaten. It tells them you're not fresh. My stomach turned. Marnie lifted the porcelain-looking mask and hesitated. The closet whispered, almost sing-song now. Opine, opine. Marnie cursed under her breath and pressed the mask to her face. The moment it touched her skin, her shoulders dropped like someone had added weight. Her breathing changed, slower, shallower. Her posture stiffened, like her body was trying to remember how to be dead. Jesus, she whispered. Aji pulled a second towel out of the drawer and unwrapped another mask. This one was smaller, cracked, like it had been dropped before. He held out to me. My hands didn't move. I'm not. You are, Aji said flatly. I stared at it. I thought Key said I'd fix it. Not where that. Aji's eyes were cold. Fixing it starts with you not getting peeled. Marnie turned her head slowly toward me. Her rubber disguise was still on over the porcelain mask, but I could feel something different behind her eyes. Something muffled, like she was speaking from underwater. Put it on, she said, voice strange. It's worse without it. I took the mask. It was colder than it should have been. Not just cool, cold like something that had never been alive. The inside smelled like pennies and damp soil. I raised it to my face. I expected pain, or some jolt, something dramatic. Instead, the second it touched my skin, the world went slightly farther away. Like someone had turned the volume down on reality. The buzzing open sign, the ticking pipes, my own heartbeat, everything dampened. My breath fogged the inside of the mask, and the fog didn't clear. It just hung there, thin and gray. Okay, Aji said. He grabbed the black feather duster out of my hand and tossed it into a corner like it was garbage. Now, listen to me. He stepped closer, eyes boring into mine through the hollow sockets. Keys is gonna walk in here and act like this is an inconvenience, he said. He's gonna be pissed. He's gonna talk slow. He's gonna ask you questions you can't answer. None of that matters. The closet door bumped again, harder. Open, it crooned. Aji kept talking, like he didn't hear it. What matters, he said, is that mouth is a request. It's her asking for you by name. And if the store thinks you're refusing, the store will negotiate. My stomach tightened. Negotiate how? Aji's eyes flicked to the shelves behind him, stacked with books like sleeping bodies. It'll take something else, he said. Someone else. It'll pick. Marnie's voice came from behind her rubber mask, muffled and flat. Like Lyle, Aji didn't deny it. I forced myself to swallow. So what do? Aji inhaled slowly, then exhaled like smoke. You're gonna give it what it wants, he said, but not all of what it wants. I stared at him. That makes no sense. It will, he said. When Keys gets here. The doorbell jingled. Once, not twice. My spine lit up with ice anyway. Footsteps came in, slow, measured, like the person walking knew every squeaky board and avoided them on purpose. Mr. Keys didn't use the front door like a normal person. I'd seen him do it before. He didn't rush in. He didn't hustle. He arrived. He stepped into the store wearing a plain gray coat, no hat, no disguise. His hair was neat, his face clean shaven, and his eyes looked like they'd never once been surprised in their entire life. He closed the door behind him, locked it from the inside, then turned and looked toward the back room. He didn't shout. He didn't call. He just walked. And as he walked down the aisle, the dust lifted in those same little spirals, drifting toward him like it recognized authority. I watched him approach through the crack of the back room doorway, my breathing shallow. When he reached us, he didn't react to the porcelain masks. That told me everything. This wasn't new. This was routine. He glanced at the closet door. It bumped softly again, like a polite knock. Open, it whispered. Key's mouth tightened slightly. Not fear, annoyance. He looked at me. You looked at her, he said. Not a question. My throat constricted. For a second. Seconds are units, he said calmly. Units add up. Marnie let out a sound like she wanted to protest. Aji shot her a look, and she shut up. Key stepped closer to me until I could smell him. Soap and something metallic underneath like old coins. He held out his hand. Show me your gloves, he said. I looked down. My cleaning gloves were still on, the cheap yellow ones. I raised them, palms out. Keys took my left hand, turned it over, and pressed his thumb against the glove's palm like he was checking a fruit for bruises. Then he released it. Good, he said. You didn't touch the door. I didn't, I whispered. Keys nodded, like that was a point in my favor on a ledger. He turned to Aji. You used the straps? Aji nodded once. Yes, sir. Any blood? Aji hesitated a fraction, then said, a little. Key's eyes sharpened. How much is a little? Aji's jaw worked. Enough. Key's gaze slid to the closet. The whisper grew louder as if it sensed attention. Open. 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 Key sighed like a teacher dealing with a loud classroom. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a thin book. Not a normal book. This one was small, leather-bound, with a clasp, like an old journal. He opened it, flipped to a page without looking, then spoke in a calm, firm voice. Dusty, he said, you will do exactly what I say. If you deviate, you will die. Marnie made a small noise. I didn't. I couldn't. The word die hit my bones like a hammer. Keys continued. Do you understand? Yes, I said, voice hollow through the mask. Keys nodded. Good. He gestured toward the closet. That mouth is an invitation, he said, like he was lecturing. It is asking you to open a passage. It is also a test of obedience. The store listens. The closet whispered again, as if agreeing. Open. Keys looked at me. You will open the closet. My heart lurched. What? Aji's eyes narrowed sharply, like even he hadn't expected that. Marnie stiffened. Keys. Keys raised one hand, and Marnie shut up immediately, like the gesture carried weight. You will open it, Keys repeated, and you will offer it something small, something yours. Not vital, not fatal. My mouth went dry. Like what? Keys' gaze dropped to my hands. Your glove, he said. I stared at him. My glove. Keys nodded. It wants your skin. You will give it the impression of skin. A glove is shaped like your hand. The store accepts shapes. Aji's voice came out low. Sir, if the child is already. Keys' eyes flicked to Aji, sharp as a blade. If the child is already invested, Then it will take the glove as a promise. He looked back at me. You will remove one glove, he said. You will open the closet. You will place the glove inside. You will close the closet. You will step back. My throat tightened, and then it stops. Key's expression didn't change. Then it moves to the next stage. Marnie's voice came out muffled and flat. There's a next stage? Keys didn't answer her. He looked at me like my fear was irrelevant. You have 30 seconds once it sees the glove, he said. If you hesitate, it will escalate. The closet door thumped hard like it was listening and getting excited. Opine, it sang louder now with a wet little smack at the end. I swallowed. My hand shook. Keys stepped aside, clearing the way. Now, he said. My fingers fumbled at the wrist of my left glove. The rubber stuck to my sweaty skin. I yanked, and it peeled off with a gross sucking sound. Cold air hit my bare hand. Immediately, I felt exposed, like the store could see my pulse through my skin. Aji's eyes tracked my hand like he wanted to grab it and shove the glove back on. Keys didn't blink. I held the glove like it was a dead rat and stepped toward the closet. Every step felt heavy, like the floor was trying to hold me back. The closet door trembled, not from inside pressure, but from anticipation, like it was vibrating. The whisper was a chant now. Open, 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 open. My hand hovered over the knob. My brain screamed at me not to do it. I turned the knob anyway. The moment the latch released, a smell poured out. Not rot, not sewage, something worse. Warm breath and old copper and wet paper and a sweetness underneath like spoiled milk. The door cracked open, and there it was. The mouth sat on the closet floor, lips parted, teeth glistening. It didn't have eyes, but I felt it looking at me. It smiled. The lips peeled back, and the teeth were too many. Row behind row like a shark, but smaller, human-sized, as if it had been built by someone who understood mouths only from description. It spoke again, louder, clearer. Open, it said, and this time it sounded like my own voice. My stomach lurched so hard I almost gagged. Key's voice snapped now. I shoved the glove into the closet like I was throwing away something cursed. The mouth lunged, not like a snail, not slow. It jumped forward on nothing, like it had invisible legs, and clamped down on the glove. The rubber squealed. The mouth chewed. Chew, chew, chew. Each bite made a wet pop. I stumbled backward and slammed the closet door shut. The moment it closed, the whisper stopped. Silence flooded the back room so abruptly it rang in my ears. I stood there, breathing hard, bare left hand curling into a fist. Keys watched me like a scientist watching a reaction. Good, he said softly. Marnie exhaled shakily. Is that it? Keys closed his little leather journal and tucked it back into his coat. No, he said. Now she will come to collect. My blood turned to ice. She? The girl? Keys nodded once, almost casually. She has accepted your offering, he said, which means she has accepted that you are playing. I stared at him. I don't want to play. Keys' eyes were flat. Want is irrelevant. Aji's voice came out harsh. Sir, if she comes inside. She won't come inside, Keys said calm. Not yet. Marnie's muffled voice shook. How do you know? Keys looked toward the store, toward the aisles, toward the play area corner that swallowed light. Because she doesn't need to, he said. The store will bring her what she wants. A soft plastic clack echoed again from the back corner. Then another. Then a third, like someone tapping a toy on wood in a slow rhythm. My skin prickled under the porcelain mask. Keys turned to me. You will go to the play area. My knees almost buckled. No, I blurted before I could stop myself. No, absolutely not. Keys didn't raise his voice. He didn't get angry. He simply looked at me like I'd disappointed him the way you disappoint someone when you don't understand something obvious. You will, he said, because this began there, and it will end there. Aji stepped forward. Sir, Keys held up a hand again. Not you, Aji. Oggi esse jotaitend. You said blood is. I know what I said, Keys replied. Then he looked back at me. You will not go deep. You will not cross the painted line. The painted line? I whispered. Keys' gaze sharpened. Tell me you've noticed it. I had. I just never wanted to admit it to myself. In the play area, there was a faint line on the floor. A ring of slightly darker wood, like a circle stained in. It wasn't paint exactly. It looked like something had been rubbed into the boards over and over until it left a mark. I nodded once. Keys continued. You will stand at the edge of the circle. You will speak her name. My throat tightened. Her name. Key's expression didn't change, but something in his eyes flickered like irritation. You don't know it, he said. You will learn it. Marnie swallowed hard. Keys, snap his gaze to her. If you interrupt me again, I will dismiss you. Marnie froze. Dismiss. That was the word they used in the stories about employees who didn't finish their shift. Not fired. Not quit. Dismissed. Keys looked back at me. You will take this, he said, and reached into his coat again. This time he pulled out a thin, folded strip of paper. It looked old, edges browned. There were handwritten words on it. Ink faded. He placed it in my gloved right hand. Read it when you reach the line, he said. Do not read it sooner. I stared at the paper like it was a live grenade. What is it? I asked. Key's mouth tightened slightly. A receipt. Aji made a noise in his throat, like a warning. My stomach twisted. A receipt for what? Keys leaned in, voice low. A transaction, he said. A deal. Then he straightened and nodded toward the doorway. Go, he said. My legs didn't move. I couldn't make them. Then the closet thumped once from the inside, hard like a fist. Even though the whisper had stopped, I heard something behind the door now. Chewing. Slow. Patient. My bare left hand tingled like it was being stared at. I forced my legs to work. I stepped out of the back room into the store, walking toward the play area like a man walking to his own execution. The store was different now. It wasn't just dim. It felt narrower, like the aisles had shifted closer. The shelves seemed taller, the ceiling lower. Dust drifted in slow, lazy spirals like underwater plankton. The customers that had been browsing earlier were gone. I hadn't heard them leave. They were just not there anymore. The front door was locked. No street noise came through the glass. The open sign buzzed faintly, flickering like it was tired. My footsteps sounded too loud. I passed the local history shelf where the tall man had taken the blank black book. The gap was still there, but now the books around it leaned inward slightly, like teeth closing. I swallowed hard and kept going. The play area was at the back right corner, small, fenced with low wooden railings, painted cheerful colors that looked sickly in the dim light. There were tiny chairs, a little plastic slide, a shelf of toys, and that circle on the floor. It was clearer now, like my eyes had adjusted to a hidden layer. The line wasn't dark wood. It was stain, a ring of something old soaked into the boards. And inside that ring, the air looked thicker, like heat shimmer. The toys inside the ring weren't arranged like a normal play area. They were arranged like offerings. A stuffed rabbit faced the center, ears perked. A plastic dinosaur lay on its side like it had been knocked down. A pile of blocks made a little tower that looked too deliberate to be random. And in the center of the circle, sitting on the floor like a kid waiting for story time, was the scalp hat, the little cap of hair and skin. It wasn't attached to anything. It was just there, limp, dark hair splayed. My stomach rolled. I stopped at the edge of the ring like Keys told me. I didn't step over. I looked down at the folded paper in my hand. My throat tightened. Keys had said, don't read it sooner. But he'd also said, read it when you reach the line. I was at the line. My fingers shook as I unfolded it. The paper crackled like dead leaves. The handwriting was neat, old-fashioned, like someone wrote it with care. It wasn't a receipt like a store receipt. It was a list, a statement. I read the first line, and my blood went cold. Receipt of exchange. Corner Palace of Knowledge. Accept the following. The ink looked darker on those words, like it had been pressed harder. Then, one name freely given. One life freely offered. One clean floor kept nightly. My breath hitched. Under that, in return, I grant. Continued operation. Continued payment. Continued ignorance of the city. My hand shook harder. There was more. At the bottom of the paper, a signature. Not a name, a mark, like a thumbprint in dried ink. And beneath it, written in a different hand, Messier, angrier. Paid in part. Balance due. My throat constricted. I heard Key's voice in my memory. The store will bring her what she wants. My mouth went dry. I glanced up into the play area's circle again. The scalp hat sat there, still. Then it twitched. Just a little, like a finger flexing in sleep. I froze. Every hair on my body standing up. The cap lifted slightly, as if something underneath it was inflating. Then it slid forward, dragging itself across the floor like a snail made of skin. A wet, soft sound. It moved toward me, toward the line. I stumbled backward a step, but I didn't cross the line behind me either. I stayed right at the edge, locked in place like a deer in headlights. The scalp hat reached the line and stopped. It sat there, hair spilling, skin glistening. Then a voice whispered from inside it. Not the mouth, not the closet, from the scalp itself. Duisty, it sang. My lungs seized. It knew my name. It shouldn't have known my name. I swallowed so hard it hurt. The scalp hat shifted, and the edge of it lifted like a curtain. Something underneath looked up at me. Two blue eyes. Child's eyes. Same as the girl outside. The eyes blinked slowly. Then the scalp hat spoke again, in a voice that was too calm, too pleased. Open, it whispered. I couldn't speak. I heard footsteps behind me, soft, careful. Aji and Key staying just out of the play area's view, watching, letting me be the one at the edge. The voice from the scalp hat softened. Play, it said. My throat tightened so hard my voice came out as a squeak. No, the eyes widened, not angry, curious. Rules, the voice whispered, like it was tasting the word. Rules, rules, rules. Then the scalp hat slid back slightly, like it was retreating. I exhaled shakily. Maybe it was working. Maybe the glove offering had. The scalp hat suddenly lunged forward again, slapping against the line like a fish hitting glass. The blue eyes rolled back, then snapped forward. Name, it hissed, the voice changing, older, deeper underneath the child tone. I flinched so hard I almost dropped the paper. Key's voice came from behind me, calm and sharp like a scalpel. Speak, he said. My mouth went dry. What? Key's tone didn't change. Her name. I don't know it. Key's voice sharpened slightly. You will. The scalp hat slapped again at the line. Name, it hissed. My heart hammered so hard it hurt. I looked down at the receipt paper again, desperate, like there'd be a clue. One name, freely given. One life, freely offered. My stomach dropped. It wasn't her name. It was a name given to her. A name offered as payment, like giving a kid a label. A leash. I swallowed. Keys. Speak, Keys repeated. I turned my head slightly, trying to see him, but the porcelain mask narrowed my view. I caught a glimpse of his face, calm, blank. Aji's face hovered beside him, tense, eyes furious. This is what you do, Aji muttered under his breath. To Keys, not me. Keys ignored him. The scalp hat's blue eyes blinked slowly, almost patient again. Then it whispered, sweet as candy. Say it. My mind raced. The tall man's words slammed into me. Tell the duster that the girl outside isn't waiting for him. She's waiting for the door. Waiting for the door. Waiting for the passage. Waiting for something to open. I stared at the scalp hat, at those blue eyes. And suddenly I realized the most terrifying part. It wasn't a scalp hat as a toy. It was a mask. A disguise. Like ours. She wore pieces of kids the way we wore rubber faces. My stomach turned. Key's voice came again, quieter now, almost gentle. Dusty, he said, if you do not name her, she will take yours. My blood ran cold. The scalp hat whispered, Duisty, like it was practicing. I shook my head, trembling. I don't know what you want me to say. Key sighed just barely. You saw the receipt, he said. My throat tightened. That's her deal. Key's eyes didn't blink. It is the store's deal. Aji's voice came out rough. Keys don't. Keys ignored him again. One name, Keys said, like he was teaching me a lesson. Freely given. Do you understand what that means? My breath hitched. It means someone named her. Someone gave her. Yes, Keys said. And that name is how we keep her on this side. My stomach dropped. Keep her. Keys nodded slightly. A named thing can be addressed. A nameless thing cannot. Without a name, she is only hunger. The scalp hat's voice shifted. Older again, dripping impatience. Name, it hissed. My hand shook so hard the receipt paper fluttered. I whispered, so, you want me to name her? Key's gaze was steady. I want you to give her the name that is owed. I stared at him. Owed. Key's expression didn't change. The balance is due. The words on the paper burned in my mind. Paid in part. Balance due. My stomach twisted. Who paid in part? Keys didn't answer. Aji's jaw clenched like he was biting through glass. And suddenly, it hit me. Aji, he'd been here a long time. He knew too much. He acted like a guard dog because he was guarding something, keeping it contained, keeping it fed. He'd said Keys made a deal, and Keys had asked him, any blood? How much is enough? Aji had said, enough. Aji had been paying in parts. Blood here, a strap there, a piece, a promise, keeping the floor clean nightly, feeding the store what it could without letting it starve. But now the store wanted a bigger payment, a name, a life. My throat tightened. The scalp hat's blue eyes softened again, almost pleading. Say it. It whispered. Key's voice was calm as death. Her name is on my tongue, he said, but it cannot come from me. It must come from you. My brain screamed no. My mouth opened anyway, because I could feel something pressing on the inside of my skull like fingers behind my eyes, like the store itself leaning in listening. I swallowed, tasting copper, and a word came up from somewhere deep, not my memory, but the air. A name. Maribel. I whispered. The moment the syllables left my mouth, the entire play area shuddered. The toys rattled. The block's tower trembled and then collapsed inward like someone had pulled string. The scalp hat's blue eyes widened with something like delight. Maribel. It sang in a child's voice now. Maribel, Maribel, Maribel. The air inside the circle thickened, shimmering. And then something rose. Not from the floor, not from nowhere, from within the ring itself. Like the circle was a mouth opening. A shape unfolded slowly, like a child standing up after crouching. Small at first, then taller, then wrong. A little girl, yes, tiny shoulders, narrow arms, a dress that looked like it had been dipped in old water and dried stiff. But her skin was too pale, her hair too dark, and the worst part, her head was covered in scalps. Not one, several, layered like hats stacked, different hair colors, different textures, stitched together with something that looked like thread but moved like veins. She stood there in the center of the circle, blue eyes locked on me. And she smiled. Hi, she said. My lungs refused to work. Behind me, I heard Marnie make a strangled sound. The girl's head tilted. Oh, she said, smiling wider. More. She took a step forward. My body screamed to me not to move, but my feet stumbled back anyway. The girl stopped at the edge of the circle. She looked down at the line on the floor like it was a curb. Then she looked back up at me. Open, she whispered, and she lifted one small hand, tiny fingers, clean nails, and pressed it against the air at the boundary. The line pulsed faintly. It held for a second. Then her fingers pushed harder. The air warped like glass under pressure. Aji cursed behind me. Key's voice snapped, hold. Hold what? My breath? My sanity? The girl pushed. The line trembled. A thin crack appeared in the air itself, like a spiderweb fracture. My bare left hand flared with cold pain like frostbite. The girl's blue eyes flicked to my bare hand, and her smile turned hungry. You, she murmured. Mine. Key's voice stayed calm, but there was steel under it now. Dusty, he said. Offer. I swallowed hard, voice trembling. Offer what? Keys didn't answer with words. He stepped closer behind me and placed something cold in my bare left hand. A coin. An old coin, thick and heavy, edges worn smooth. It felt like it had been in pockets for a century. My fingers curled around it instinctively. "Throw it," Keys said. "Into the circle." My stomach lurched. "Why?" "Because she will take it instead of you," Keys said. The girl's smile widened as if she heard every word. "Gimme," she whispered. My hand shook as I lifted the coin. I didn't want to throw it. I didn't want to give her anything. But my bare hand burned cold, and her eyes were on it like a target. I flicked the coin forward. It arced through the air and landed inside the circle with a soft clink. The moment it touched the floor, the girl's head snapped down. Her smile froze. Then she lunged, not across the line, inside the circle, toward the coin, moving like a spider, too fast, too low. She grabbed the coin and shoved it into her mouth. Her jaw unhinged wider than a child should. She swallowed with a wet gulp. Then she froze, eyes wide. Her expression changed. Confusion first, then rage. Her blue eyes snapped up to Keys. "You," she hissed, voice deeper now, layered with something older. Keys didn't flinch. "That coin is paid," he said calmly. "The store accepts it." The girl's face twisted like she'd bitten something sour. The line on the floor pulsed again, stronger this time, like it was reinforcing itself. The crack in the air sealed slowly. The girl's small hand slapped against the invisible barrier, furious. "Open," she shrieked, and the word came out like a chorus, child voice and adult voice, and something animal underneath. The shelves around the play area rattled. Dust exploded into the air in a swirling storm. Marnie screamed behind me, one short, terrified sound. Aji grabbed my shoulder hard. "Back! Back now!" We stumbled backward together, away from the play area. The girl kept shrieking, pounding at the boundary. The line held, but it shook with every hit. Keys stayed closer than any sane person would, watching her like he was watching a caged animal test of ours. "She's angry," Marnie whispered, voice flat and muffled through her masks. "She's so angry." Keys nodded once. "Good," he said. I stared at him, shaking. "Good? She's going to." "She is angry because she was tricked," Keys said. "Anger means she's still bound by rules." The girl slammed both palms against the barrier again. "Name," she screamed. "More." Her blue eyes locked on me again. "You gave," she hissed. "You give more." My bare hand burned colder. Keys turned to me. "Now," he said quietly, "you will understand why we do not allow children." My breath hitched. "Keys, what the fuck does that mean?" Keys didn't answer. He stepped back, finally, and nodded to Aji. Aji's jaw was clenched tight enough to crack teeth. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a little toy, a plastic figurine, a tiny boy, the same kind of 1940s woman had said on the counter. Aji held it up like it was bait. The girl's shrieking stopped instantly. Her head tilted. Her blue eyes widened with interest. "Toy," she whispered, suddenly sweet again. Aji's voice came out rough. "Yeah," he said. "Toy." Marnie's muffled voice trembled. "Where did you?" Aji didn't look at her. "I keep them." My stomach turned. "Why?" Aji's gaze flicked to Keys, then back to the girl. "Because it's better than giving her something real," he muttered. Keys' voice was calm. "Offer it." Aji's hand shook as he tossed the toy into the circle. It landed with a soft clack. The girl's smile bloomed like a flower. She crawled to it, picked it up, and cradled it in both hands like it was precious. She looked up at us through the barrier, eyes shining. "Play," she whispered. Then she lifted the toy to her mouth. Her teeth sank into it. Plastic cracked. She chewed, slow, savoring. Chew, crack, chew. My stomach lurched. She swallowed bits of plastic like candy. When she finished, she licked her lips. "More," she whispered, but it wasn't a demand now. It was hopeful. Key's voice was quiet. "We have delayed her," he said, "not satisfied her." Marnie's shoulders slumped like she'd been holding herself up with fear, and now it was running out. "How long?" she whispered. Keys looked at the line. The stain seemed to glow faintly now, like it had been fed. "Until dawn," Keys said. "Maybe." Aji let out a bitter laugh. "Maybe." Key's eyes flicked to him. "Do you have a better solution?" Oggi jotaitend. Yeah, burn the fucking place down. Key's expression didn't change. And then she would walk free without a boundary, without a name, without a store to anchor her. Aji's eyes flashed. Maybe that's better. Key's gaze hardened. It would not be better for you. Silence. The girl in the circle hummed softly to herself, like she was content for the moment, fingers tracing the floor. My hand shook. I stared at Keys. What did you do? I whispered. What did you start? Keys looked at me like I was finally asking the right question, even though he wasn't going to answer it fully. I inherited this, he said quietly, like a business, like a debt. Marnie's voice was small. From who? Keys' eyes flicked to the shelves, to the dust, to the blank black spaces between books. From the last man who thought he could profit from stories, he said, and from the man before him. And before him, the store persists. My throat tightened. And the name, Maribel, who named her? Key's mouth tightened. Someone who wanted the store to keep running. Aji's voice came out harsh. Someone who wanted to keep making money. Key's eyes narrowed slightly. Someone who wanted to keep the city from noticing that a thing like her exists. My stomach dropped. The city doesn't notice? Keys nodded once. The store's second gift is ignorance. People forget what they see. They explain away missing children. They ignore the cracks. Marnie's muffled sob caught in her throat. Missing children. I froze. The scalp hats. The toy figurines. The woman's stretched glove hand. The tall man taking the blank book like it was his. The rules. Don't let in any children. I felt like I was going to vomit. You've been feeding it, I whispered. Keys didn't deny it. I've been paying, he said. There is a difference. Aji spat on the floor. Same shit. Keys' gaze snapped to him. Watch your language in the store. Oggi laft, bitter. Fuck you. The girl in the circle suddenly turned her head toward us, like she heard the word and liked it. Fuck, she whispered, giggling. My blood went cold. Keys' jaw tightened slightly. He looked at me again. Dusty, he said, you will finish your shift. I stared at him, incredulous. Are you kidding me? There's a thing. You will finish your shift, Keys repeated, calm as stone. You will keep the floors clean. You will keep the shelves dusted. You will keep the boundary respected. My hands trembled. Why? Keys' voice dropped. Because your care is the payment, he said. And because if you stop caring, the store will seek care elsewhere. My stomach twisted. Elsewhere like the city. Keys nodded once. Marnie's voice shook. So we're just stuck. Keys' gaze moved to her. You are employed, he corrected. Aji's laugh was a bark. Jesus Christ. Keys ignored him again. That seemed to be his superpower, ignoring anything inconvenient. He stepped closer to me. You have one more task, he said. My throat tightened. What? Keys held out his hand again. Your bare hand, he said. I hesitated. Aji's voice came out sharp. Don't. Keys' eyes flicked to Aji. He will. Aji's jaw clenched, but he didn't step in front of me. I slowly held out my bare left hand. Keys took it gently, like a doctor, and turned it palm up. Then he pressed his thumb into the center of my palm. Hard. Pain flared. I hissed. Keys' thumb scraped slightly, and I realized he had something between his fingers. A tiny blade. He sliced the skin just enough for blood to bead. I jerked, but his grip was firm. Enough, Keys murmured. He released my hand. A bead of blood sat in my palm, bright and shocking against my skin. My stomach rolled. What the fuck, I whispered. Keys nodded toward the play area. You will feed the line, he said. A drop, not more. My breath hitched. No, Keys' eyes were flat. Yes. Aji's voice came out low and furious. Keys, don't make him. Keys cut him off. Do you want her to break it? Or do you want her to stay? Aji's jaw worked, but he didn't answer. Marnie's muffled voice trembled. Is that why the line is stained? Keys didn't look at her. Yes. My throat tightened. So that's what you meant by blood being enough. Aji's eyes flashed. Shut up. Keys nodded once. A boundary is only as strong as what it is paid with, he said. Blood is the oldest currency. My hand shook, blood bead trembling with it. I wanted to run, but run where? The door was locked. The aisles felt narrower. And even if I got out, Keys was right about one thing. If the store let go, it wouldn't just vanish. It would move. It would seek care, and it would find it in the city. My stomach turned. I stepped forward again toward the play area, moving like a sleepwalker. The girl sat inside the circle now, humming, fingers playing with bits of chewed plastic like toys. She looked up as I approached and smiled. "More," she whispered. I stopped at the edge of the line again. My blood bead glistened. The girl's eyes locked on it. Her tongue flicked out, quick and hungry. Key's voice came from behind me, calm. A drop. My hand hovered over the line. I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to give anything. But my hand trembled and a single drop fell. It landed right on the stained ring. The moment it hit, the ring darkened slightly, like thirsty wood drinking. The air inside the circle shimmered stronger. The girl's smile widened, but she didn't scream or lunge. Instead, she sighed, content, almost relieved. "Thank you," she whispered. My stomach rolled with a different kind of horror. The horror of being thanked for feeding a monster. I stepped back quickly. Key's voice was quiet. "Good," he said. "Now we wait." Wait. That's what this job was. Waiting out hunger. Waiting out rules. Waiting until dawn like it was a finish line. Keys turned and walked away as if the crisis was solved. He didn't say goodbye. He didn't pat my shoulder. He didn't offer comfort. He simply returned to the front, unlocked the door, stepped outside for a second, maybe to check the street, and then locked it again. He stayed in the store, but he didn't hover. He moved like he had things to do, like he trusted the system he'd built. Aji leaned in close to me, voice like gravel. "You okay?" he asked, and it almost sounded like he meant it. I laughed, sharp and shaky. "No." Aji nodded once. "Yeah." Marnie's shoulders trembled. "We're feeding her," she whispered. "We're literally..." Aji snapped. "Keep your voice down." Marnie's eyes flashed. "Why?" "So she doesn't hear." "OGS jotaitend." "So the store doesn't." I swallowed hard. The rest of the shift felt like walking through a nightmare you can't wake up from. We dusted. We cleaned. We avoided the play area. But I could feel her in the corner, humming, shifting, watching. Every so often, I'd hear that soft plastic clack, like she was tapping a toy against the floor to remind us she existed. Around 5:30, the tall man came back. I saw him through the aisles, moving silently. He didn't come to the front desk this time. He went straight to the play area corner and stood just outside the boundary, hands in his coat pockets, looking down at the girl. My blood ran cold. Marnie saw him too and froze behind the register. Aji stiffened like he was about to fight. Keys appeared from nowhere beside him, calm as ever. They stood there together, Keys and the tall man, watching the girl. I couldn't hear what they said at first, but then the tall man's voice carried faintly. "She's stronger," he murmured. Keys' voice was even. "She is hungry." The tall man smiled faintly. "Hungry things grow." Keys didn't respond. The tall man's gaze flicked toward me. Even through my masks, I felt his eyes. "You've named her," he said, not question. My throat tightened. I didn't answer. The tall man chuckled softly. "Good boy." Aji took a step forward, voice low and dangerous. "Don't talk to him." The tall man's smile widened. "Protective," he said. "How charming." Key's voice cut in, calm but sharp. "Do you have business here?" The tall man reached into his coat and pulled out the blank black book he'd stolen earlier. He held it up like a priest holding a Bible. "I'm returning a volume," he said. "Temporarily." Key's eyes narrowed slightly. "What?" The tall man's smile thinned. "Because if she breaks your boundary, you'll have no use for your little rules. And I prefer you functional." Key stared at him. "You're afraid." The tall man laughed quietly. "Of her? No." "Of chaos?" "Yes." He stepped closer to the play area boundary and held the blank black book out over the circle. The girl looked up, blue eyes narrowing. "What's that?" she whispered. The tall man's voice softened, almost sweet. "A story," he said. "A new one." The girl's smile bloomed. "Story," she whispered. and her voice sounded like longing. Key's jaw tightened. Don't. The tall man ignored him. He lowered the book slowly into the circle. The moment the book crossed the boundary, the air shimmered violently. The girl lunged, not at the book, but at the tall man's hand. Her fingers slammed against the invisible barrier, but because his hand was already inside, she caught him. Her small hand wrapped around his wrist. The tall man's smile vanished. For the first time, I saw something like alarm in his eyes. The girl giggled. Got you, she whispered. The tall man yanked, but her grip was iron. Key's voice snapped. Pull back. The tall man's jaw clenched. He pulled harder. The girl's head tilted. Then she opened her mouth wider than a child's should and bit down on his hand. The crunch was sickening. The tall man screamed. Short, sharp, more in anger than pain. He jerked back, ripping his hand free. Blood spattered the boundary line. The girl chewed, smiling, and I realized with horror she'd taken something. Not a finger. His fingers were still there, but skin, a strip of it. She chewed like gum. The tall man staggered back, clutching his bleeding hand, face twisted. Key's expression didn't change, but his voice was cold. You see, he said to the tall man. Rules. The tall man's eyes burned with fury. Fuck you, he hissed. The girl giggled again, delighted by the word. Key stepped closer to the boundary line, gaze locked on the girl. Spit it out, he said, voice firm. The girl's smile widened. No. Key's jaw tightened. Maribel, he said sharply. The moment he said her name, the girl froze. Her smile faltered. Her eyes flicked to him, suddenly wary. Spit it out, Keyes repeated. For a second, she looked like a normal child being scolded. Then her face twisted with rage. She swallowed the strip of skin. Key's eyes narrowed. Fine, he said quietly. He reached into his coat and pulled out another coin. Same kind as before, old and heavy. He tossed it into the circle. The girl's rage dissolved instantly. She scrambled for it, forgetting the tall man completely. Key's gaze flicked to the tall man. Leave, he said. The tall man's hand dripped blood onto the floor, and the dust around it seemed to drink it eagerly. He stared at Keyes with hatred. This place will fall, he whispered, and when it does, you'll be the first she thanks. Keyes didn't blink. Go. The tall man turned and walked away, clutching his hand. As he passed me, his eyes locked on mine again. He leaned in close enough that his breath fogged my mask. She likes your name? He whispered. She'll wear it next. Then he walked out. The bell jingled once. Silence returned, but it was worse now. Tighter. Marnie's voice shook. What the fuck was that? Oggi Joe clenched. That was a reminder, he muttered. Keyes didn't answer. He stared at the girl inside the circle, who was happily chewing on the coin like candy, eyes dreamy. Then Keyes turned to me. You will not look at her again without a mask, he said. I swallowed. I had the porcelain. Keyes' gaze sharpened. Not that mask, he said. Your disguise. Adult face. Adult posture. Adult smell. My stomach turned. He leaned closer. She is learning your shape, he murmured. Do not teach her more. My throat tightened. Keyes, how long has this been happening? Keyes paused. For the first time, he looked tired. Not scared. Not guilty. Just tired like a man holding a heavy box for years. Longer than you think, he said. Marnie's muffled voice cracked. Missing kids, is that why the neighborhood? Why people say not to walk here at night? Keyes didn't answer, but his silence was an answer. The sky outside the front window had shifted slightly, still dark, but lighter at the edges. Dawn creeping in like a mercy. I held on to that like a lifeline. We just had to make it a dawn. Just had to keep cleaning, keep caring, keep paying, and then maybe she'd recede. Maybe she'd sleep. Maybe the store would let us go. But the store didn't feel like letting go. As the light outside changed, the store changed too. The shelves began to creak more often, like someone shifting weight. The dust lifted in thicker swirls, drifting toward the play area, spiraling around the boundary line like it was feeding it. The girl's humming grew louder, more confident. At 6:10, she stood up inside the circle. She swayed slightly, like she was dizzy with hunger and coins and plastic and blood. She looked straight at me. Even though I tried not to, I met her eyes for half a second through my masks. Her blue eyes crinkled with delight. "You," she whispered, and her voice wasn't muffled by distance. It sounded like she was right behind my ear. My bare hand flared with cold pain again. I jerked my gaze away. Key's voice snapped from the front. "Dusty." I turned, heart pounding. Key stood by the register, holding something. A book. Not blank. Not old. A children's picture book. Bright cover, smiling cartoon animals. My stomach dropped. "Where did you get that?" I whispered. Key's eyes were flat. "It arrived," he said. Marnie's voice trembled. "It wasn't here before." Keys nodded once. "The store provides when she asks." The girl in the circle giggled softly. "Story," she whispered. Keys looked at me. "Bring it," he said. My knees almost buckled. "No, you whispered." "No, I'm not." Key's voice cut like a knife. "Bring it," he repeated, "or she will come to take it." My breath hitched. Aji stepped forward, voice low. "Sir, don't make him go closer." Key's eyes flicked to him. "Then you do it." Aji froze it. For the first time, I saw real fear flash across Aji's face. Quick but undeniable. He didn't want to step near the boundary now. Not with her awake like this. Not with dawn approaching. Aji had been paying in parts, but he didn't want to be the balance. My stomach turned. Key's gaze locked on me again. "You started this," he said calmly. "You will carry it." My hand shook. I stepped forward toward Keys and took the picture book from him. It felt warm, like it had been under someone's body. I held it like it might bite. The girl's eyes followed it hungrily. "Gimme," she whispered. I approached the play area again, stopping at the line. The girl stood just inside, swaying slightly, scalps layered on her head like a crown. She smiled at the book. "Read," she said. My throat tightened. "No." Her smile faltered, then turned sharp. "Read," she repeated, voice deeper. Key's voice came from behind me. "Open it." My hands trembled. I opened the book. The pages were glossy, colorful, but the pictures weren't cartoon animals anymore. They were wrong. The first page showed a drawing of a little bookstore, smiling like it was friendly. The second page showed a little boy inside, wearing a disguise that looked like an adult face. The third page showed a little girl outside the door, smiling. My blood ran cold. I flipped faster, panic rising. The pages showed scenes like a storybook version of my life. Me dusting, me locking the door, me looking at her, me opening the closet, me bleeding onto the line. My hands shook so hard the pages fluttered. The last page showed a little boy kneeling at the edge of circle, holding out his hand, and a little girl reaching out, taking it. Underneath, in big, cheerful letters, it said, "Thank you for playing." My stomach lurched violently. The girl giggled. "That's you," she whispered. I slammed the book shut like it burned. Key's voice was calm. "Now," he said, "give it to her." My throat tightened. "No, that's not a book. That's a contract." Aji muttered behind me, voice rough. Keys didn't deny it. The girl leaned forward, pressing her small hands against the invisible barrier, fingers splayed. The air warped slightly. The line pulsed. I realized with horror that the boundary was thinner now. The crack had sealed, but it wasn't as strong. The girl's eyes locked on mine through my masks. "Give," she whispered. My hand shook. The book felt warm, heavier. Key's voice dropped, quieter, almost intimate. "If you refuse," he said, "she will take the refusal as a game, and she will play harder." My throat tightened. "What do you want me to do?" Key's eyes were flat. "Give it." Aji kursid. "Keys, this is..." Keys snapped, "Enough." Aji shut up. Marnie's muffled sob came again. We can't just." Keys ignored her too. The girl's smile widened, hungry and delighted. I stared at the book, then at the girl, then back at the book. My brain screamed that this was the moment everything snapped. If I handed her the contract, I wasn't just paying. I was signing. But if I didn't, my bare hand burned cold again, sharper. The girl's voice softened, coaxing. "Please," she whispered, sweet as honey. "Play." and something in that sweetness made my stomach drop even harder because it sounded like a kid practicing manners. Like she'd learned. From us. From the rules. From a store. I took a shaky breath. Then I did the only thing I could think of that wasn't obedience or refusal. I tore the book. I grabbed the cover with both hands and ripped down the spine. The crack of tearing paper sounded like a gunshot in the quiet store. The girl froze. Keys froze. Aji made a shocked sound. Marnie gasped. I tore again, ripping pages out in handfuls, shredding the story contract into pieces. My hands shook violently, but rage drove them. That hot, dumb rage fear turns into when you're cornered. I threw the torn pages into the circle like confetti. The pieces fluttered down onto the stained line, onto the toys, onto the girl's feet. For a second, nothing happened. Then the air inside the circle shimmered violently. The girl's face twisted. Her smile vanished. Her blue eyes went wide with something that wasn't just anger. It was hurt, like a child who'd had their toy broken. Her lips trembled. Then she screamed. The scream wasn't loud like a normal scream. It was everywhere. It vibrated the shelves. It rattled the glass. It made the dust explode upward like a storm. The boundary line pulsed, darkening, then lightening like it couldn't decide what it was. The crack in the air reappeared, spreading faster now, like the barrier was tearing. Keys swore under his breath. First time I'd ever heard him swear. Aji shouted, "You idiot!" I staggered back, heart hammering. The girl slammed both hands against the barrier. The crack widened. Her fingers pushed through slightly. The air split like wet paper. My bare hand flared with pain. The girl's eyes locked on it, and she smiled again, pure hunger now. "You break," she hissed. "I take. Keys vznept. Aji. Straps." Aji lunged for the back room. Keys grabbed my shoulder hard, his grip like steel. "Blood," he hissed, "come gone now. Feed the line. Now." My hand was already bleeding from earlier, the cut reopened by shaking. Keys yanked my hand forward, pressing it toward the boundary line. "No," I shouted, pulling back. Keys' eyes were furious. "Do you want her out?" Marnie screamed. "Stop. Stop pushing him." The girl's fingers wriggled through the crack like worms, reaching. The store groaned around us, shelves creaking like something waking up. I looked at the girl, at her fingers, at the widening crack. I looked at the front window. The sky was pale now, dawn almost here. We just had a hold. I took a shaking breath, then slammed my bleeding palm down onto the stained line. Pain flared. My blood smeared into the ring. The moment it touched, the line darkened deep like it drank greedily. The crack shuddered. The girl shrieked in rage. Keys hissed, "More." "No, igaspat." The girl's fingers pushed harder. The crack widened again. I bit back a sob and pressed my palm again, smearing more blood, feeding the line with what felt like my own life. The circle pulsed, brighter now like it was waking up too. The crack trembled. The girl's fingers withdrew slightly. She screamed again, but now the scream sounded frustrated, trapped. Aji burst back from the back room, leather strap at his hands, eyes wild. He ran to the play area and whipped the strap across the boundary, not crossing, but snapping it against the air like he was punishing an invisible animal. The sound was sharp and ugly. The girl flinched. She recoiled, clutching her hands to her chest. "No!" she screamed, child voice now, high and furious. Aji snapped the strap again. "Back," he snarled. "Back in your fucking circle." The girl hissed like a cat. Then she lunged again, but the boundary held this time. My blood, the strap's crack, the coins, the rules all pulling tight like a net. Keys grabbed my arm and yanked me back from the line. My palm burned, blood dripping. The girl stared at me, eyes wide and shining. "You," she whispered, voice small and hateful. "Mine." Then she did something worse than screaming. She smiled, slow, deliberate, and she lifted her hands to her head. She peeled one of the scalp layers off like a hat. Underneath was another scalp. She peeled that too, one by one, like she was undressing. Under the last scalp, was nothing. No skull, no hair, just a dark, wet opening like the inside of a throat. She held the scalps in her hands like toys and giggled. Then she flung them at the boundary. They slapped against the invisible barrier and stuck, sliding down slowly, leaving streaks. The sight made my stomach twist so hard I almost vomited. Marnie sobbed, "Oh my God." Key's face was pale now. The girl pressed her face against the barrier, that opening where her head should be inches from the crack. And from that opening came a whisper, not her voice. A chorus. Open, it breathed. The barrier trembled. The line pulsed. The store groaned like it was on the verge of collapsing. Then, light, real light. Sunlight hit the front windows, pale gold, cutting through the dust. The moment the first sunbeam touched the play area fence, the girl froze. Her smile faltered. The chorus whisper weakened. The barrier shuddered. The crack began to seal, slowly, like scab tissue forming. The girl's blue eyes flicked toward the light, suddenly wary. She hissed, not angry now, afraid. Key's voice came out low, triumphant and exhausted. "Dawn," he murmured. The girl backed away from the barrier, one slow step at a time, eyes locked on me. "You owe," she whispered, voice small, almost pouting. Then she sat down in the center of the circle. She placed her hands neatly in her lap like a child behaving. And she began to hum again, soft, sweet, Ron. The scalp she'd thrown slid off the barrier and fell to the floor inside the circle. Limp again. The ring of stain looked darker now. Fresher. My palm throbbed. Keys released my shoulder and exhaled slowly, like he'd been holding his breath for an hour. Aji stood there shaking, strap dangling from his hand. Marnie leaned against the wall, sobbing silently behind her masks. I stared at the girl, humming calmly, as if she hadn't almost torn a hole in reality. Key spoke, voice calm again, like he'd put his composure back on. "The store is stable," he said quietly. "Oggi barktalaf." "Stable." "Sure." Keys glanced at him. "You will clean the back room," he said. "Dispose of remnants." Aji's jaw clenched, but he nodded once. Keys turned to Marnie. "You will open the store at 8, he said. "As normal." Marnie's muffled voice shook. "As normal?" "Keys, what the fuck?" Keys' gaze sharpened. "As normal," he repeated. Marnie fell silent, trembling. Keys turned to me. "You," he said. "You will go home." My knees nearly gave out in relief. I can go." Keys nodded once. "Yes." I stared at him, disbelieving. "Am I fired?" Keys' mouth tightened slightly. "No." Aji's voice came out bitter. "He's promoted." Keys ignored him. "You have been noticed," Keys said to me, voice quiet. "That is not a promotion. It is an infection." My stomach turned. Keys stepped closer, lowering his voice so only I could hear. "You tore the contract," he murmured. "That was unwise, but it also proved something." My throat tightened. "What?" Keys' eyes were flat. "That you will resist," he said, "which makes you interesting." My blood ran cold. Keys straightened. "You will return tonight," he said, "and you will wear your disguise properly." I swallowed. "What if I don't?" Keys' gaze didn't blink. "Then she will come looking," he said softly, "and she will not need a door." My spine went numb. I stared at the girl in the circle, humming sweetly, blue eyes half-lidded like she was dreaming. And I realized something that made my stomach drop even further. She hadn't been trying to break out because she wanted to roam. She'd been trying to break out because she wanted me. Because I'd given her a name. Because I'd fed the line. Because I'd played. I stumbled backward, numb, toward the front. Keys unlocked the door for me like a gentleman. The morning air outside felt wrong. Too bright, too normal, like the world didn't deserve to be unaware of what was behind that glass. I stepped out onto the sidewalk. The sun was rising. People were jogging in the distance. Cars passed. Someone laughed. Life. I turned back, staring at the bookstore window. From outside, it looked harmless. Goo. A cozy little place that smelled like paper and coffee. Through the glass, I could barely make out the back corner, but I could feel her eyes on me anyway. I walked home like a man in a trance. I scrubbed my bleeding palm in the sink until it was raw. I showered until the water ran cold. I sat on my bed and stared at the wall, trying to convince myself I could quit. Trying to convince myself Keys was bluffing. But when I closed my eyes, I heard it. A soft plastic clack. Not in the store. In my apartment. I froze, heart hammering. I turned my head slowly toward the corner of my room. Nothing there. Just shadows. Just my laundry pile. Just the normal mess of a broke guy's life. Then from the hallway outside my door, I heard a tiny giggle. Childlike. Sweet. And a whisper, so faint it could have been my own mind. Next time, I didn't sleep. At dusk, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Just 2 words. Come clean. Under it, a photo. My apartment door. From the outside. Taken just seconds ago. And in the bottom corner of the frame, barely visible, a small pale hand pressed against the wood. I stared at the screen until my vision blurred. Because I understood then. The store didn't just trap her. It trained her. And now she'd learned my name, my shape, my smell. Keys had said I'd been noticed. He'd been right. So if you ever find yourself walking past a little bookstore that's open too late with an open sign that flickers like it's tired, if you ever hear a child giggle from somewhere in the back, even though the place is empty, if you ever see a faint dark ring on the floor of the play area and you think it's just an old stain, don't go in. And if you do go in, if you can't resist the pull of stories and dust and quiet shelves, don't look at the girl outside the door, because she isn't waiting for you. She's waiting for you to open something. And once you do, she'll make sure you finish the game.